got some really bad news this past weekend. Tua, he's not going to be around for the college football playoff. But the show must go on, and there are 5 to 6 teams that are vying for a shot to make the playoff and ultimately to hoist the trophy at the end. Thanks to our friends at AWS, we simulate all of those possible situations thousands of times and say, here are the chances that your team will make it to the playoff. Let's start with the first 2 likely to be out, and that is Oklahoma and Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, for us, Oklahoma, just the last 3 weeks have not been particularly impressive. A loss in Kansas State, 2 very close wins, basically against Baylor and Iowa State. They would basically need to win the Big 12, have some teams in front of them do poorly, and that's not necessarily probable here with how strong the SEC is. Georgia, on the other hand, there's a clear path, and really only one path for them to make the college football playoff, and that's to win out and win the SEC title game against a team like LSU. And while that's not as probable given how good LSU is, it's going to be played in Atlanta. And Georgia's going to have a little bit of a home field advantage there, and they have a very strong quarterback in Jake Fromm, who's actually grading within the same sort of bucket as Joe Burrow.
Is he strong as in like he works out?
Yeah.
Because I've been watching the play on the field, and I don't know if strong is the word I would use there, but they have a shot, and people are kind of writing them off because of how good LSU has looked, how dominant their offense was against Alabama. But look, they play the games for a reason. Joe Burrow's been spectacular. He threw a couple interceptions this past week. Let's see.
Defense has struggled the last 2 weeks.
True.
Holding down Ole Miss and Alabama.
The 2 teams that are kind of jockeying for position in 3 and 4 in our simulations are Alabama and Ohio State. And this is an interesting one because Alabama right now is on the outside looking in, but we give them a 50% shot to actually make the college football playoff.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about the dynamic with Bama and then relative to Ohio State.
Yeah, I think there's a clear path here as well, and they might get some sympathy actually, much like Ohio State did when they had to go into the college football playoff with their third-string quarterback just a few years ago. But Bama has a clear path here. LSU winning the SEC title game over Georgia and then them winning out. Mac Jones has looked pretty good in Tua Tagovailoa's stead, and then of course they have Jerry Jeudy, Najee Harris, very good offense, and a defense that I think at least in the next couple games will be good enough to get them there. Ohio State, on the other hand, again, their path is basically win the Big Ten. And the Big Ten is, I think, a lot stronger than people give it credit for. Penn State, of course, Minnesota, have been good so far this year. And, they will present a challenge to Ohio State should they get this far.
So if both those teams actually make it to the playoff, let's just say, okay, they squeak in. Ohio State has a better shot to get there.
Yep.
Do they have a better shot to win?
No, conditional on Alabama getting there, we have them as a higher probability to actually win the college football playoff, and that's because they're an SEC team. Our prior distributions say they're going to be a better team than a Big Ten team, based on historical data. So yeah, I mean, Ohio State, has a better chance to make it, but Bama, once they get in that tournament, I think is a stronger squad from head to toe.
We're recording this in Ohio. We'll let you know if Eric makes it out of here alive.
Yeah.
Let's move on now, though, to the 2 teams at the top of our simulation. Now, Clemson has taken a ton of heat. A ton, right? They've looked bad. They've played no one. Trevor Lawrence is all of a sudden terrible. And we forget that last year, no one really knew who Trevor Lawrence was until he lit everyone up in the playoffs. So we're kind of repeating history here. Clemson is undefeated. We have a 96% chance, if I could even speak, to make the college football playoff. But LSU is the number 1 team. So why do we have Clemson with such a better chance to make the playoff?
Yeah, it's absolutely because of the road, right? I mean, the fact is the ACC this season is not a particularly tough journey for Clemson. And we saw the reason I think they're being downgraded is they won by 1 point against basically a plucky UNC team. But since then, Clemson's basically blown out every team that they've faced since. Trevor Lawrence has graded well in every game since. Their defense has graded fine in all but one game since. So they're trending in the right direction, much like last season when they snuck up on Bama. They're not going to sneak up on the field as much as they did last year, but given, I think, the fact that they weren't even in the top 4 when they initially ranked the teams, they kind of are going to be an underdog here, whereas LSU is everyone's darling. You can make an argument that they kind of peaked too early, and we see some of their warts the last 2 weeks in their defense, giving up a lot of points to both Bama and Ole Miss.
You hate to peak too early. Here's the thing that I'm already hearing, which is, should they try and set up an LSU-Ohio State final, make sure they're on opposite sides of the bracket? And I hear that and I go, what could go wrong? Absolutely everything could go wrong. If both those teams could lose, they might not even make it there. That's why they still have to play these games. Obviously, LSU with a big test going forward in that SEC slate. So a lot to watch. We'll be back next week as we follow and lead up to the college football playoff. For more, head to pff.com for all of the great content made possible by the machine learning capabilities at AWS.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.